Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. It's time for you and those you love to step off the addiction roller coaster for good and learn a solution that works. It's called Move Past Addiction Masterclass, and it's a free 1-hour live online class where you'll hear new and empowering information about how to solve addiction for good without steps, meetings, rehabs, or being labeled for life. If you're struggling or you love someone who is, then this masterclass is for you. To enroll in this free 1-hour class, click the link provided or go to thefreedommodel.org and choose the date and time that works for you. See you at the masterclass.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran.
And we wrote
The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap,
with our colleague Stephen Slate, who is right now working on the second edition, which he's now has a good portion of it that he is editing and adding his portion to.
Yeah, which that'll take a long time because a lot of what we discussed is not a rewrite, but a huge amount of additions that we're going to put in, things we've learned in the last 5 to 6 years. And also some of the chapters will be renewed and changed. New
updated research and things like that.
So it's like writing another book, actually. A lot of people, when they do a second edition, it's not, they don't learn as much as we do. I guess our industry is a constantly moving target. It's not a static thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to do a little housekeeping. I want to talk about, boy, we have a lot of stuff going on. So first of all, we have the new Freedom Model app, Freedom Model online program mobile app. You can go to the Freedom Model /something.
Thefreedommodel.org. If you go right to our website and you look at the menu bar, it's to the right-hand side of the menu bar.
Yeah, and I think it's like /mobile-app or something. I don't know.
It's it's thefreedommodel.org /mobile app.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the link is right in the website, and that's pretty awesome. Now, for people who don't know us that well, or don't have the online program, or have
never been to a master class.
Yeah. So the app has a whole bunch of samples of everything that we do, and it'll introduce you to actual components and modules of all the various different options.
The online
services.
program modules, the 12-step deprogramming, and it'll give you quick access to the master class as well. So you can enroll. I think you can enroll right from the app. Like, it's still kind of in development, so we're still working on some things. Right now, you can't make in-app purchases. You have to go to the website to do it.
But it carries you there.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But the links will bring you there. But we're working with the platform that our online program is on, and with Google and Apple stores to try and make all this work. So bear with us, but it's still, the app is still really great. And there's a lot of, and you can get access to the books there. Like all the digital copies of the books are there. So you don't even have to go to our website and do coupon codes and downloads and anything like that. You can literally get the digital copies right through the app.
Yeah, which is really cool. And if you are a member of the online program, it makes navigating much easier on mobile. And more efficient. So yeah, we're improving that. We also launched a couple of weeks ago the Deprogramming from the 12 Steps course, made it a standalone course you can get now. for those people that are in what I call recovery purgatory. Maybe you're in AA or NA or in 12-step based treatment of some kind, and you can't seem to muster up the courage to leave because you're frightened. They've scared you into believing that it's jails, institutions, or death if you leave. Then if that's the case, if you're there, if you're in that place, or if you're somebody who has a family, maybe you've left AA already, an NA or treatment, and you're doing the freedom model and you're moving on with your life, but your family is giving you a hassle and trying to coerce you back into treatment or some other modality, 12-step modality, then they should watch it.
For sure.
And we also have the family program and the online program for families that are in that boat as well. So I guess my point is we literally, I think, have everything covered. We also now have master classes for employers and employees and companies. We'll do virtual workshops with them. We do virtual workshops with families. We do our complete addiction solution program where people fly in. We have a system for everybody now.
That's right.
Worldwide. And that was a dream of mine, with all these free options that people have. And then if you need some real high level deprogramming or high level work, we have the coaching and our workshops. Whew.
Yes. So today we want to talk about, this was a request that's been made by a couple different people late last year. We want to talk about how difficult it can be to leave the cult of 12 steps, right?
Yeah.
The AA cult, the NA cult, whatever 12-step cult you've been in. And I know I'm desensitized to the cult terminology now because I just use it all the time. But I know sometimes that hits people a little hard. That's not my intention. But if you're involved in a group and you find it difficult to leave that group because of fear, because you think something terrible is going to happen to you, because of guilt, well, then you're probably in a cult.
Yeah, and cults can mean a lot of different things. And if you want to know more about cults themselves, watch episodes or listen to episodes 147 and 148 of our podcast, because we go through a lot of that material. I also want to include in the deprogramming of what we're talking about leaving, I also want to include the Recovery Society as a whole.
Yeah.
So I want you to think about this. So you may not be a member of AA. You may not be a member of Narcotics Anonymous. You may not be in an active 12-step group, but the 12 steps have permeated our society to such a degree. You may be in a rehab. Now, let me give you an example. So I get a DUI at 18 years old, and now I'm stuffed in mandated treatment, right? I would consider that a cult-like experience, maybe even the cult, because our society has adopted a religion, and the religion is the 12 steps. It is a religion. It is its own religion. And the term addiction is a religion. People aren't going to understand initially what I'm talking about here, but I'll get into it. This is all a belief centered on controlling you. It's not centered on helping you. Now, I think there are a lot of people involved in that industry and that society, what we call the Recovery Society, which includes treatment, AA, NA, 12-step groups, therapies, all the addiction stuff. I think there are a lot of people who are involved in that who mean well, but they're trained. We're generations deep, and they're trained in this model, and it's become a complete and total construct of a religion on beliefs. It's not based in fact.
That's exactly right. What I was thinking when you were talking was, even if you aren't involved in any kind of support group, if you believe that you're in recovery, if you have that identity of an addict, of somebody
a person in recovery,
somebody that's broken, that is not like other people.
Yeah.
And even that in and of itself, what we're talking about is moving beyond that, really getting to the point where you understand unequivocally, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, this all centers around Bill Wilson's idea in the Big Book, where he said self-knowledge is not the answer. And it is. It is. If we took that one statement, Self-knowledge is not the answer. Self-knowledge availed us nothing. These are quotes from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What he did was he convinced people that they can't think for themselves. Once you do that and people believe it, that they can't trust themselves, well, then they become easy targets for being led and controlled. So when you're at your vulnerable point, like I was, like Michelle was, where you're beaten down, you're drinking yourself to death, drugging yourself to death, and things are just not going well in your life, it's very easy to give up your rights as an individual, sort of volunteer your mind away. And that's a tough spot, because then you start to believe the people around you. And if the people around you have a vested interest in controlling you, whether they're just narcissists like in 12 steps, or they're actively making a living off of your vulnerabilities like the treatment industry does, shit, they got a hell of a motive to keep you thinking that your self-knowledge can't save you.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's not a whole lot that's more tragic than not being able to believing that you can't trust your own mind, that you can't trust your own thinking. That is a recipe for being controlled, but it's also a recipe for struggling in life overall, not just with substance use, but the idea of powerlessness. And when we say this, the powerlessness thing, and online and stuff, people go, it's just powerless over alcohol. I'm like, you mean the inert substance alcohol that just sits there and does nothing? No, what you're saying when you say someone is powerless is you're saying they're powerless over their actions, right? They're powerless over their desires, their actions, the choices that they're making.
Right. The subject of powerlessness is the person,
It
right?
is the person.
Right.
And we know that AA believes that, because the entire first step is about being insane. Right?
Yeah.
Your life is or the first and second step. Your life is unmanageable and you're insane and only God can save you, right? So that's the first 3 steps right there.
Yeah. And then the rest of it is about recruitment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. It is a full-blown, well-constructed, very well-marketed, mainstreamed cult. And I would say that the recovery community outside of AA is as well, meaning treatment providers who have bought in. It's a bizarre thing when you get into a DUI or some sort of problem from your drinking or drugging, you will realize that you don't live in a free country anymore. The United States is not what it once was. You are now at the mercy of the recovery society.
Well, you don't even have to get a DUI. I mean, all that it takes is for you to go to someone else and say, I think I'm drinking a little too much.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, if you even if you're somebody that has 2 glasses of wine a night, if you tell your doctor, I have 2 glasses of wine a night and, I feel like that's a little too much. Depending on who your doctor is, all bets are off. I mean, you can, if you have a professional license, forget about it, because then you're going down this road of you can easily be stuffed into a treatment program, told to go to AA, and then your life is not your own anymore.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So unless you've experienced that, it's hard for people to understand how crushing it is to have other people leading your life for sometimes years at a time. I mean, it almost killed me. It got to a point where I was so frustrated with my lack of forward evolution, because I was stuffed in this intensive outpatient therapy thing at a mental hospital, and I would go every day and relive this horrible past that I had, and I was never allowed to just grow. And boy, did they fill me with self-doubt. So I guarantee you there are a whole bunch of people that are listening to this right now thinking, yeah, that's me. I do have self-doubt. I'm not sure I'm capable of moving past my addictions, right? And addiction has a terrible bunch of mythology wrapped into it. That term is a bad term. That's why we use substance use. And when we talk about addiction, sometimes we have to use that term because it's the sort of the word that's used. But I'd rather you used substance use, because that says I have a dog in that fight. I'm thinking about using, and I have control over that.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of ways that we get trapped in this whole paradigm, by using the word addiction, by saying recovery, as if there's something to recover from, some condition to recover from, right? Recovery was something that is all throughout the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because Bill Wilson and Dr. Silkworth were the architects of the disease concept. And it's just a concept. It's just a made up idea. It's so crazy what we're doing with people. We're destroying lives. We're keeping the tenure of the drug longer in their lives. We're increasing binge rates. We're increasing overdose rates because people give up. If you don't feel like you have control over yourself, and then you're taught you actually don't, you don't have a mind anymore. You have no capability to make decisions for yourself. And where does self-confidence go? Out the window.
That's right.
And
that is the great juxtaposition into what we wanted to talk about today, which is how difficult it is to get on with your life, to extricate yourself out of the cult of recovery, and actually, and specifically AA. I mean, leaving AA, I mean, I can remember about 5 years in, I had my son just not wanting to go to meetings every single night, and how difficult that was for me on many levels. Because I was a integral part of AA. I was, the treasurer of a meeting of a group, and I think I had left the secretary position of the area and stuff by then, but I was sponsoring a bunch of women. And so, I mean, the guilt that I felt, the ostracizing that I got from different people, the judgment.
The gaslighting. Yeah, it was rough.
I mean, just because I was like, my goal when I went to AA was not to trade my daily drunkenness for being a slave to other people, for being a slave to meetings, a slave to a group, a slave to recovery, whatever you want to call it. And that's when I started, when I was trying to get on with my life. I was building a career. I was building a family. The idea of being at meetings every night instead of being home and mothering my child, I didn't want to be at meetings every night anymore. I wanted to get on with my life.
So Michelle's bringing up something that I think is important, and that is that there's a tremendous pressure that people feel, and a tremendous fear that people feel when they're thinking about leaving and getting on with their lives, or maybe the groups don't resonate anymore. Maybe they're being abused in the groups. That's very common, and all of these things. So it can be really hard to leave, but I want to make a point. It was very difficult for us because we didn't have the freedom model.
Exactly.
So we've spent this 34 years, the first 10 of which was us extricating ourselves out of the cult. And that's the whole recovery model, the whole thing, the whole, every piece of it, the treatment game, all the 12-step therapies, all of it, the replacement drugs, all of it. And so it took us 10 years to sort through all of those intricacies and helping people then leave, right? Then we spent 20 years more writing down and codifying a much more efficient, painless way to do it. And I want to make this very clear. When I just did the revamp of the deprogramming from the 12 steps course, it was a seminar series within the online program, and now it's a standalone course, and you get it in the online program, because I feel like it should be everywhere. Everybody is influenced by this recovery society in one way or another.
That's for sure.
But here's the good news. Once you see it for what it is, once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it.
That's right.
You realize it's everywhere. You're being played all over the place, by the way. But once you see it, you're free. You can be like, wait a minute, that shit's stupid. There's a beauty to it. Once the fear is gone and you eliminate it with facts, then you're like, I can't fucking believe I believe that.
Well, it's funny.
It's wild.
We had done the seminar, series, almost 2 years ago, or was it? It was about 2 years ago. I think we did the first one.
Mhm.
And then, so we redid it, and it had been a while since I, seen this stuff. And if you go through that 12-step deprogramming course from the beginning to the end, or you take someone through it, I think a lot of times the reaction is, wow, that's where all this shit came from. That's crazy shit.
It's
like,
true.
like,
It's
like
true. It's almost unbelievable.
it is like, how did everybody buy into this? Like, if they really, and the information that's in there is available. Like Mark read it in all the books about Bill Wilson, about AA comes of
Yeah,
age, and
you don't have to go very far to find it.
no, it's AA approved literature, for crying out loud. Like, so the truth of the matter is, AA, for all the badness, was pretty open about the very strange beginnings
Yeah,
of
yeah.
their cult. And when you see the 12-step deprogramming course and you go through it, and you're like, holy shit, this is real culty stuff. Like, it's like it legitimately came from a cult, from an actual from a cult called the Oxford Group.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, I think sometimes this can get real heavy.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, and
Mm.
you're in, I call it recovery purgatory, right? You're in that terrible place of, I don't know what the solution is. And so I'll get to that in a minute, what the solution is, what the solution to your fears and addiction, quote, this whole mess that you're in, right? I'll explain that in a moment. But you don't know how to move on with your life outside of this recovery addiction world. And you don't want to be in this weird place where you're going to meetings and you're not with your family and you're not moving forward and you're not allowed to go to college and you're not allowed to, don't project into the future, a meeting every day, meeting makers make it, all the
You
stuff.
can't fall in love with somebody new. You can't, you just can't live your life without checking with someone first.
Right. So you're in this real conundrum. And when you're there, it's this whirlwind of fear. And the only thing that gets rid of fear in life is understanding.
Knowledge.
Because then you can problem solve anything.
Yeah.
Now, if you're out in the battlefield and you're in a trench and it's World War I, you're going to be pretty scared, terrified, and you're in a trench and you're cold and you're wet. And the only solution might be ducking behind that dirt pile in front of you. And that's your problem solving. The good news is you have a lot more options in this situation than somebody like that.
Mm.
But it feels like that because they've taught you that that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is we have to lower that temperature with the facts and say, hey, did you know that literally 95% of what you're learning there is complete malarkey? It's
Made up.
Made up. It's fiction. I want you to look at the book of Alcoholics Anonymous as a book of utter, total fiction, because when you know the facts behind what Bill Wilson was writing, he admits later, years later, yeah, none of that was really true. I mean, everything I was doing in New York before I had written the book, that 4 years before I wrote the book, was a complete failure. None of it worked. Nobody stayed sober. But yet in the book, he says 75% had stayed sober. There were 100 men and women. There was one woman. There was a group of guys, about 30 strong, and all of them were fucked up and some died. That's a fact.
That's the truth. You know what makes it more believable, especially in our culture today, is because medical establishments adopted it.
That's it.
Okay. And now if you go to college or you go to get your KSAC, right? Or, to become a certified alcoholism counselor or addiction counselor, you learn it. You learn it like it's somehow
Enlightened,
actual researched. It's called evidence-based. I don't even like to use that terminology because it's been hijacked by treatment, and that treatment is evidence-based. It's bullshit. There's nothing evidence-based about talk therapy based on the 12-step program.
Yeah. And it's even worse than that. Talk therapy coupled by faith healing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're mixing this religiosity, which
and
is
moral. It's moralistic.
yeah. And I don't think we're saying anything that a lot of people don't already know. But when you dig in, again, if you're in that purgatory, you just need the facts.
But that's it.
Take our deprogramming course. We built it for you. You don't have to go through what me and Michelle did. And let's say that you have other mythology beyond the 12 steps, like maybe you believe that drugs have all these perceived benefits. Well, then read our book. We have all the bases covered, folks. People don't have to wonder how to get over these problems anymore. We've done the homework for you. You can fast track it. And here's the beauty. Here's what's wild. When you figured all this stuff out, when you figure out what the myths are that are holding you trapped, you debunk them. And then you lower the value of the drug in your life, and you lower the value of the rituals that you have wrapped around this whole habit that you have. Once that's done, everybody says, I never knew that it was as simple as making a choice. I can see it clearly now. It really is just that simple. It is when you get rid of the recovery society lies. But until you do, it's very complex because they've really muddied the water with lies.
And I don't want people to misunderstand what we're saying, okay? When we're talking about leaving recovery, when we're talking about moving on and moving past it, we're not talking about, oh, you can go moderate. We're not talking about any kind of substance use whatsoever. We're talking about knowing internally, knowing in your heart and your mind that you're free.
And then if you know that, then you can moderate with impunity.
You can if you want to.
Then you can abstain with impunity. Then you can drink and drug heavily with impunity, because now you can do whatever you want. We value your autonomy.
Yeah.
Because we know that I'm my own individual. She's her own individual. I have no stake in making her or coercing her to do anything. I can't convince her. All I can do is lay out the facts. And then people say, with those facts, what do I want for me? Now, in my case, I abstained for 21 years, and now I moderately drink for 14 successfully and with no issues. I do nothing to maintain recovery. Same story for Michelle. Years are a little different. I think 20 and 14 or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. But the point is, we've been heavy, quote unquote, alcoholic drug addicts.
Yep.
Right.
We did that
in the recovery society. We were in recovery purgatory for 10 years, 10, 12 years.
And I want to add, I want to add something about when you're leaving, because I was actively in AA for almost 10 years. But then for a period of time, I'm not sure I ever identified as in recovery outwardly, but I did have that internal little fear of substances a little bit. I had just this idea that I was somehow different than other people, just a tiny bit. I had an idea that my problems, that my life problems somehow had something to do with being a former addict, alcoholic type person.
Right. You were holding on to those vestiges.
I was. I really felt like, and then of course, I also had these mental health diagnoses I had to kind of figure out. And so I always thought, oh, I'm different because of those things. I had to let all that go. And that was a process for me. It was a period of learning and opening my mind to the possibility that I was normal, totally and utterly normal, which is a double-edged sword, because I think some of us don't want to think that we're normal, right? But in the end, it's pretty comforting to know, no, all these things that I'm experiencing, I think we talked about it in the last podcast episode. Maybe they're just normal.
Maybe that's just being a human being.
Yeah.
Right. An autonomous individual with a thinking apparatus trying to figure out how to navigate life
and be happy.
Yeah. I look at this thing called life is really rough sometimes.
Mhm.
And Sometimes we have to be a little bit comfortable with being uncomfortable. I did a TikTok video on that yesterday. One of the things I want to also say is we have this QR code here on the screen, which brings me to my next point, because I saw it and I thought, oh, we didn't mention
never
that,
said
but
it.
this is a good time to talk about this. So let's say that maybe you're not ready to leave yet. We have a master
Which is
class.
okay.
We have a master class that's an hour long, and we do it once a week. That might be the perfect introduction for you, because we go over a very macro view of what we do, but also we give you some lessons, because people have a tendency when they listen to the podcast sometimes to say, oh, they're just saying all this stuff, right? And it's anecdotal stuff. Well, that's why we have the masterclass. It's free. You can, once you register for it, it's an hour long, and we actually go through some of the lessons, the research, the hard science that shows loss of control is a myth, and the idea that addiction is a chronic progressive illness is a myth. And we go through those two lessons amongst some other information on both sides of those lessons. So then you can start to see, oh my God, these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It'll build credibility with us if you're new to us. And you might be blown away by the language here, but once you watch the masterclass, you'll be amazed. You will be utterly, completely amazed at what you've believed and how much research there really is out there. I was blown away by it many years ago when I was a budding researcher. I was like, you know what? There's other people that feel the same way I do. And they felt this way since the 50s, and there's really credible research all the way, behavior research, all the way from the 50s, all the way to the present day, that, thousands and thousands of pages, tens of thousands of pages devoted to, you don't need to identify as a diseased, broken, biohacked person, because none of that is true.
No. Building habits is a natural part of being a human being. And we're set up that way to make things more efficient, things that we do repeatedly. So I think the first book I read that really made me question things was Stanton Peele, was The Diseasing of America.
Yeah.
And I mean, just positing the question of if heavy substance use is a disease, which is a chosen behavior, then what the hell isn't a disease, right? I mean,
well, and the crazy part is, you bring up that point. Now we are in the manifestation of pathologizing everything that is normal and uncomfortable into a disorder, to pull people into treatments for things that are completely normal and making them feel as if they're not. I mean, my God, if you guys saw what my life was like growing up, you would think, how is that guy at all normal today?
Right.
And you'd say the same thing for my 11 siblings. And you know what? They're all successful. They're all good parents. They're really loving people. And we did not grow up that way.
No.
And but in today's world, we would be sucked into all kinds of mental health. Luckily, we were our family was just at the cusp of all that pathologizing happening. And we kind of escaped a lot of it. We just missed it. I got sucked into it. Some of my younger siblings.
Here's the other part of this, which we I think touched on in our last podcast episode, is, I mean, there's a certain cult aspect to now, people that are leaving AA are now kind of getting sucked into the mental health world, right? With a bunch of different, and I get it. People that love us, they're like, they think, leaving 12-step world because it's not trauma informed. Yeah, I do think that the 12-step program can exacerbate some of that shit that you're trying to deal with and get past. But I also think going to therapy where you talk endlessly about it is no different.
Yeah, no, you're bringing up a great point. So I'm watching this now too, because there is definitely a larger community of people leaving the overt cults, and now they're going into microdosing. Here's a good example. Here's a great example. Microdosing.
Not that we're down on any of this, right? No, we just want the pitfalls.
But I'm just going to tell you that it's an active placebo.
Yep.
A drug does not make you think better. It doesn't make you change your mind and motivations. Okay? So people, or a drug doesn't have a mind, so it can't give you insight. The insight is your insight.
Right.
So my point is, I'm picking on that, but that I see people, and then
like, oh, this is the answer.
Yeah, this is
AA was the answer. Like, you might be one of those people. Like we kind of were like that too. Like, oh, this is the answer. Oh no, that sucks now.
Right
now I'm going to this thing.
Yeah, then I'm going to go to trauma therapy, right? Because it was my traumas, and trauma can't make you. We cover that. Statistically. It can't, and
doesn't create addicts.
It doesn't create addicts. It doesn't. So whether you deal with your traumas or not is a life sort of enhancement situation, right?
Yeah.
You'll probably be happier if you deal with your traumas once and for all, and stop looking backwards and move forward. And there may be a process with that. I had massive trauma in my life that I had to work through. I didn't do it with a therapist. I just kind of figured it out, and I said, well, I'm going to move forward. And sometimes I'd be triggered a little bit, and I'd say, wait a minute, that's old scripts. I got to react differently, retrain my mind, and move forward. So I'm making it sound simple. I had a rough go, but I figured it out, and human beings do. So, but if you get caught in a modality, this is my point.
Endlessly spinning.
Yeah, yes. If you're looking for a solution in a modality instead of yourself, the modality is a tool. And a lot of times they're freaking ineffective because you get caught in the other person that's involved in that industry, in the treatment industry of mental health. They have a vested interest in you being sick.
Well, and
so you got to be careful of that.
You're looking for something outside yourself to fix you. That's the problem. Okay. You're looking for some magic thing that can change your mind for you. New information, you can take in new information and change your mind, but the changing your mind part is on you.
Yeah. And ultimately, you are the judge and jury of your decisions. Only you. There is only you in you. Drugs don't have a mind. Therapy isn't a thing that is going to come into your mind and change it for you. Now, that's not to say I am not down on talking to a therapist. I'm not down to talking to a friend. I have cried a river of tears in my journey of becoming a well-adjusted adult. All of this but ultimately, I had to decide to be happy. I had to decide to let go of relationships that were painful and were not bringing me the happiness. I had to ask myself the hard questions of, is this thought and behavior good for me?
Yeah. Is it serving me?
Is it? And when I started to really sit down and get real with myself, I'm the only one that can do that. And you are the only person that can do it for yourself. So if you find yourself leaning on modalities, getting caught in cults, and you're one of those people that wants a system to change you, I'm a systems person. I like that. I'm attracted to it. But I've learned, no, I'm the system.
And yeah.
My mind is my system, and I get to choose to be happy or not. I choose, and I don't go to my hometown. I don't. A lot of bad things happen there. I don't go there anymore, and I haven't for 30 years. And that was the best move I ever made. And people say a geographic cure can't. Well, it cured it for me. It gave me a chance to figure out who I want to be,
Yeah.
And I left probably in my lifetime, 25 different relationships, not just with women, but friends and family that just weren't healthy for me.
Yeah.
And I gained a few that were phenomenal for me. So I just want people to know that you are free, but to get there requires new information. But if you're in the cult, in that acute place of recovery purgatory, get out. We have the tools that'll help you get out. We're here for you. If you need some coaching, We don't do therapy. We coach, we give you the information, we talk to you, and we help you with our experience.
And we listen, and we're non-judgmental.
Right.
It's very difficult, even in the mental, especially even in the mental health world, to find someone that's non-judgmental, that's non-prescriptive, that isn't going to tell you, "Oh, I think this is best for you." Everybody thinks they know what's best for you always,
Yeah.
and so I think that's that. I mean, that was the challenge when I was training coaches, and even now when we're training coaches, that's the challenge.
That's the biggest challenge.
To find somebody that isn't going to assume they know what's best for the other person. But look at if you're when you're in the process of extricating yourself from a cult, or you're in the process of moving past recovery fully. The online program can help. The 12-step deprogramming can help. Be kind to yourself, be patient,
Yeah.
and mindful. Stay mindful about your self-talk and about your beliefs, and challenge them.
Yeah. And know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You really are. You were born to problem solve. And like I said, I cried a river of tears. I tell
Me too.
I'm on the other side for so far now that it's, you're looking at a person who really figured it out and moved on.
Yeah.
And I'm on that side of the fence, but I can remember
Oh,
what
me
it was
too.
like. And it was not easy at first. I was really frightened, but
Yeah.
we have tools. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we spent 34 years talking about this every single day to people across the world. You don't have to go it alone. We have coaching. You can be taught directly by Michelle and I. You can fly up and spend 2 days in a workshop with us.
Yeah.
Everything we do is one-on-one and
Yep.
private, and you will never have a record of being treated if you work with us because we're education only.
That's right. That's right. So I think we're going to wrap this up. And just, what do we have anything else we have to talk
I
about?
don't think. So go to the masterclass.
Yeah,
It's
just come to the masterclass.
if you're new,
Spend an hour with us.
yeah.
If you can't make it to the live event, it's fine. Enroll in whatever day you want to. We should be posting February dates here within the next week or so. But we have dates right through the end of January that are up there now. It's every single week and it's totally free. And if you can't come, you can enroll in whatever day you want and you can watch it later. We record every single one.
Yeah, we record. But if you're at the live event, you can ask us questions.
Yeah,
live.
you can ask us questions
And
directly.
your identity is hidden. So don't worry.
That's right.
All right, everybody.
All right. Have a great week.
Have a great week.
Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? Well, that's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.